At that the sinner paused his savage meal, and lifting what he'd butchered in the back, wiped his lips on hair. The grief I feel so weighs my heart that if I must now speak, the words are shadows of a wound still raw. But words, if words may in due time wreak vengeance further on the one I gnaw, that this withered tree of pain may bear the fruit of infamy to cram his maw, I'll braid my speech more tightly into tears. I can tell by your accent, Florentine, no wonder that you found your way down here. Count Ugolino I, and see, this one is Archbishop Ruggiero. I hardly need to tell you of the wickednesses he's done, or how I was ensnared in his misdeeds, or how his double dealing laid me low, so that our bodies never can be freed, apart in this cold pit. You cannot know what horrors passed when I fell for his trick. Bear witness now. The chink was narrow, piercing the wall of what was Eagle Rock, but since my sentence there is called the famine, for others who will sit under its lock. Several moons spilled light in through the broken gap before I had that dream where I beheld the veil of future nights torn open. The archer seemed to be some lord on high, after a wolf and wolf pups on the hunt down the mountain, keeping Pisan eyes from beholding Lucia, that once sent Volandi, Sismondi, Laferranchi among lean, fast hounds sprinting well in front. Father and sons, weary, gnawed by pangs, began to falter backwards in a blur. I saw rip-jutting flanks torn by sharp fangs. When I woke at daybreak, I could hear my sons crying in their sleep, asking for bread. It was dark. We were all huddled there. If you don't weep, you have no soul indeed. If you foresee what my heart foresaw, if you don't weep, you surely have no need for human tears. We were awake. It drew near the time they brought us food, but then I heard below, just as each one grew more anxious from the dream, thudding as one hammered down the tower door fast shut. I looked hard at the faces of my sons. I did not weep, though hard as stone I thought, while my children cried, and little Anselm said, "Father, why won't you tell us what?" But all that day, no tears of mine were shed. All night, nothing. After the world had seized its light back, and the daylight raw and red broke, one beam pierced our cell. My gaze, dwindling into blindness, comprehended, my face reflected in 4 sets of eyes. Stricken with grief, I bit into my hands, and they, who thought I did so out of hunger, said, stammering, as they tried to stand, "It would much ease our own heartbreak, Father, if you fed on us instead, for it is certain the flesh you dreshed us in you may regather." So I calmed myself for their sakes, hoping to spare them suffering. That silence lied. Traitor, earth, why did you not split open? 3 days. On the 4th, my Gatto cried, throwing himself down at my feet, "But Father, help me, why don't you help?" and died. Just as you see me now, I saw the others between the 5th day and the 6th day go silent and lie down beside their brothers. 2 more days, blind in the dark, I bellowed, stroked their heads, and cried their names. Then, sick to madness, hunger overmastered sorrow. After he'd spoken this, his eyes shot back into his skull. He took the head, and wolfish teeth gnashed the bone cap. I heard it crack. Pisa, your scandalous sea is like a hiss slithering in the Roman grass. As fate has yet to make you feel the force of justice, like Capera and Gorgana built a gate of stone to dam the Arno, so the flood may drown each evil soul under its weight. Count Ugolino, as it has been said, betrayed your forts, but how cruel a thing to torture his poor sons the way you did. Theban outrage, innocent and young, Brigada, Ujoce, as well as those 2 I've just named in my song. We walked on waters, harder than any shell, over different sinners locked in ice, these flat on their backs. As cold tears fell, that very crying would not let them cry. Grief turned on grief. The very sorrow blocked what sorrow meant to banish from their eyes. Bars of tears froze into jagged pockets with crystal ice which dug into the bone, so weeping they ground out their own eye sockets. And cold like that, every nerve of mine felt hard as calloused flesh, my senses dead, yet still I felt sweeping past my skin a driving wind. At that I stopped and said, "Master, how does this motion seem to fly? Who causes it? The depths where we are led still breathe." He, "Before too long your eyes will answer the strange question of these blasts, raining as if their currents fell from high." A mournful sinner howled out as we passed, "Cruel souls, you have found here the final home of all your living dust. I beg you, take from my face these bars, so that my heart can purge its agonies before my griefs freeze back into the scars." "May I plunge down to the bottom of the ice," I said, "if knowing of your former state, I don't break loose the cold chains of your cries." "Friar Albergino," he said, "who of late tended the garden which bore a basket load of figs, which here have hardened into dates." "But could?" I started. Have you already died?" "I have no knowledge of my flesh and bones back in the world above us," he replied. "By Ptolemaea, as is often done, shades may sink down here before Atropos in due time can bid the body gone. That you may quickly pluck out of my face these claws of tears, I will tell you further that when a soul becomes so treasonous, a demon takes its body into its power. The flesh shambles, empty and possessed, until its natural span of years are over. The soul shoots like a star into this cistern's eternal winter, while above the trace and husk of his old carrion's not missed. But if you have come down into this place, know Sir Brancadoria for many years has been imprisoned and is such a case." "You lie," I, through my astonished stare, replied, "for Doria, or else his match, breathes, eats, and drinks, sleeps, and wears his fine clothes." "The Malebranche's ditch," he said, "not yet come, oh, that Michel Zanche, among that black lake's bubbling pitch. Up there it is well known one of the devils, after he and his kinsman's treachery, rose and poured into his fleshly vessel. But now give me your hand and let me see." And yet I left his eyes still frozen blind, for cruelty to him was courtesy. Genoese, and the humane and refined, cultured modes of deviance you basked in, why has earth not scattered you to the winds? For I found here, among Romagna's blackest spirits, one whose vices were so rife, that while his soul lies chained in its ice casket, his walking corpse still shams his hollow life.